Peace and blessings, family. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Saturday morning coffee talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. And today we're just going to chit chat about my spiritual journey. And so sit back, relax, get you some tea. I got me some herbal tea, and we'll be right back on the other side of these commercials to begin our Sajdah Saturday morning coffee talk. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the page while you're checking out these commercials. Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Saturday morning coffee talks, where we talk about life, love, and business.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee. And he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee. And I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who in my judgment is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive, and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman, is made to face difficulties. And after difficulty comes ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through, and if your difficulty is somewhat similar, then today we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our black giants fought for black people to know our history. Because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the Bible...
You belong to yourself. You're an independent people, created from the nation of free people. Yes, sir. You don't need to go nowhere but to yourself. Yes, sir. there will be a great separation. So I said, it is on now.
The college is meant to prepare you for your future. That the time dictates that if we don't do something for ourselves as a people, we will be destroyed. And the aim of the enemy right now is to take us out.
We have God with us. We have Him as our guide. Yes, sir. We don't have to stand around here and ask the question, what must be done? Yes, sir. Get up and let's go and do something. Yes, sir. We cannot sit down. We cannot lay down. Yes, sir. We must get up. Yes, sir. And go to work.
Do you know what real joy is in life? Visioning something and bringing it into reality. That's real joy. Do you know what the next step in joy is? Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity.
Tonight, you need to fasten your seatbelts. We're going to hear from some of the greatest minds in the world. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of trusting our future and the future of our children into the hands of those who don't love us. I believe we need to revitalize black leadership.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks. Peace be unto you. For those of you who don't know what Assalamu alaikum means, I just don't want to assume. I don't know what black person living now, right now in 2023, getting ready to be 2024, doesn't know what or has never heard of Assalamu alaikum. That's just me, right? But anyway, we'll say it in English as well. Peace be unto you. Because we're fastly moving into this point, and I've been saying this for a while, where I think we're going to move into a phase where certain lines and boundaries in religious institutions are going to be dissolving. I'll talk about that a little bit. Thank you for wishing me a happy spiritual birthday. Today is the day, y'all. September 9th. Just has a special ring to it. September 9th. And I don't know if I would say this is the day that I started my spiritual journey, but I would say this is the day that marks in history the beginning of the official beginning of my spiritual journey. Because as you know, from the minute that we're born, we're on a spiritual journey to come back to Allah. So, that journey we're on, whether we want to be on or not. But this one, it was a special one to me. So thank you all in the chat. Thank you, Sister Sandra. Thank you, Sister Alita. Thank you, Sister Felicia. Oh, we got some sisters on here today. Brother Victor, Brother Lamont, Sister Betty. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all. How's everybody doing this morning? Let me know in the chat how you doing. I did not prepare one of our Women of the Bible discussions after Sister Sheba. You know what? Nobody else rose up to greet me this week. I don't think the sisters in the Bible was messing with me this week. I got a list here and I was going over their names and I just kept going over it all week, but nobody rose up to greet me. Maybe somebody will greet me this week, or you all will give me some suggestions and we can figure it out. Somebody has said Ruth, and I tried to touch the spirit of Ruth, but I couldn't get it. And I didn't want to just, I don't like to just come out here and just read the story of the person and that's it. I like to be able to get into it and put a little bit of myself in it, but I couldn't do it with Ruth. So then I thought about Mary, the mother of Jesus, or Mariam. I got her, but that's such a big story that I said, man, that's going to have to be like a 2 or 3 part series, because it's almost blasphemous to try to do her in an hour. So I just been kind of skipping past her. But we'll see. Let me know in the chat any questions or discussions you all want to have about just being on a spiritual journey. And I wanted to have this conversation this morning because many times when we get on our spiritual journey, some of us find a religion that is a home. For me, I found Islam as my spiritual foundation and my home, specifically Islam as taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. When I heard it, when I embarked upon it, I just knew in my soul that it was what I was born for and born to do. And from that moment on, really since July 15th, 1990, but officially September 9th, 1990, when I recited and got my X, my life has revolved around and been interwoven with the supreme wisdom that they given to us. And I made a decision that this would be my life, regardless of what post I held, regardless of where I was. It would be my life and I would represent that. And I was never that person that said, okay, this is temporary. This is for a minute. So that's just my journey. Everybody has a journey, and I'm not shading anybody that has had a different journey. So remember, you all, I have to remind you all something about myself. I only teach and do my podcast from my perspective, from what I know. And if I bring somebody else on the show, it's to gain their perspective. But in no way, shape, form, or fashion is me telling my story ever designed to be a way in which to look down on your story or to get you to feel like your story is not right. Because wherever you are today, whoever you are, whatever you've gone through and overcame is exactly what you needed to do in order to be the person that Allah wanted you to be. So don't ever discount your story just because you hear somebody else. Don't ever change your story just because you hear somebody else tell their story. Your story is your story, and that is your authentic self. And the more you own and dig into your own story, the more successful you will be in life. You will always miss the mark on your success when you are spending time trying to be something or someone that you are not. The biggest premise of the teachings, one of the biggest premises of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is accepting your own and being yourself. That doesn't just mean collectively as a body of people, but it also means individually. I do a coaching session. I have authenticity coaching that I've been doing since 2005. And I've been so in love with my journey that I want other people to be on their journey. And I just think it's so beautiful. And as seekers and those of us on our journeys, we kind of come together. And then pretty soon, our collective journeys become like puzzle pieces, right? As it relates to the forward movement, of our people. It's just my perspective on it. So don't ever sit in the audience. Don't ever, when you're listening to me or anybody else, compare your journey, change the story of your journey, start adjusting the narrative, or certainly people can motivate you. And what I hope to do is just talking to you about how I navigated, just to help you. Because while I can naively say that I began my spiritual journey on September 9th, 1990, it's really a journey that I have been on since I showed up on the planet. And as I become more connected to the pulsation, the vibration, and the energy of the universe, to Almighty God Allah, I understand that this journey began even before I showed up on the planet. And I can feel that, I can connect to it. I get all crazy and spooky on y'all, but I literally can connect to where I was and who I was as an energy before I came into this body. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. But, even as a child, I can keenly remember feeling the Spirit of God. Keenly remember it. I remember times when I felt him really strongly. I remember times when I just felt like he was just lingering, always there. And I'd have conversations with him. I wouldn't tell anybody about it because I don't think I really understood it myself. But I just remember keenly being aware of that. I remember certain things that I didn't necessarily need explained to me. And some people like to say, well, if you grow up in a household and you see other people pray, then you'll get it and you'll pray. That's not necessarily the case. Because you can have several children that grow up in the same household and they can see one particular situation completely differently. I have a good friend that has 8 brothers. And when you hear them tell stories, there's 8 different perspectives on the stories. And if you listen to each one of them, it sounds like 8 different situations, but they're all talking about the same situation. But I remember not needing to be told to pray or how to pray. I didn't need anybody to tell me to be aware or to have an awareness that not that God was present, but that I was in his world. And I knew that very keenly. There's one particular picture of me, and we have not been able to find it. I seen it a few years back, and we're still looking for it. But I must have been about 5 or 6 years old, and I was standing in front of the church. My family is, at that time, we were Catholic, and we went to a church called St. Benedict the Moor in Omaha, Nebraska. And there used to be a statue of St. Benedict in front of the church. And I think they said that some boys broke the statue or something. It's not there anymore. But I remember when we would walk up to the church, I would connect with St. Benedict the Moor. And on this particular day, we'd gone to church, and church growing up Catholic and the way we did for me, didn't really have anything to do with God. It was just kind of like a ceremonial thing we would just go through. And so me and my brother and my cousins, we would go we was really silly children. We would go just to laugh at my grandmother. She was going to do something crazy. We sitting there giggling, and I don't know why them old ladies, their hands were so strong. She'd take that Starlight Mint and break it in half, pop, and give us a little piece of it. Like, how'd she break that with her hand? But so or she'd give us a piece of gum. To this day, if I chew gum, I like to chew two pieces, because my grandmother would take a Trident and break it in half. And you'd be sitting there with that little piece of gum, chewing that gum in church just so you could be quiet. And then once you got done with it, she'd take the napkin and put it up to your mouth. And when you got ready to spit it out, she'd just snatch it on out your mouth. So church was one of those things, my grandmother always tried to get cute when she was going to church. She'd wear little heels and be slipping. And I remember one time she went up they have this thing in the Catholic Church where you go up to kiss the cross. I forget what time of the year it is. And she went up there and slipped down in her little clogs, and we was in the back just giggling. So, but this particular day, and I don't know what or why. So let me put it this way. Before we would go to church, me and my grandmother would be sitting in the house reading. And every day when I came home from school, came to her house, she would be reading the hymnals. And in reading those hymnals, that's how I learned to connect and understood Jesus and the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost and all of that. You remember that, Brother Lamont? They just break that little candy or them little butterscotch candies. They would just break them in a few pieces, and they'd be evenly broken, I think, and give them to us. I tried to break one of those one time, and I said, maybe these is different Starlight candies or something. I don't know. And they had the little red hot ones. But anyway, we read the hymnals, and that's where I learned about like Jesus and the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, and understood all of that conceptually, because I've always been a reader. And but this particular day, let me see. I spent the night over her house because I had, maybe it was first communion that day. Somehow I don't know. Somehow we got to her house before. And she always listened to Reverend Ike. I don't know how you're going to be Catholic and you listening to Reverend Ike. But Reverend Ike was on while she was getting dressed. She had the big radio. And we ended up at the church. And I just remember walking in the presence of God. Like I felt him and knew him, and that he was there. Like I felt like he came to church with me that day. And when we came out, I remember taking a picture by the statue of, the red hot ones, by the statue of Saint Benedict the Moor. And I just remember the spirit that I was in. And when I saw that picture a few years back, it all just kind of rushed back to me like this really strong rush of energy. But I got to find the picture. But yeah, I was literally just standing there like this. One of my favorite stances, standing there next to Saint Benedict the Moor, praying like this. And I wasn't praying to Saint Benedict. I connected with him, but I just remember being in the presence. And I would get times like that where I would just be locked in really strongly. And it would almost become like a semi-trance like state, literally. I remember several incidences where it would occur. And I call it like my Harriet Tubman moment. Remember how she used to pass out? And but even in my study of world history, the thing that I gravitated most through the study of world history was the study of religion. And so I think probably like the third or fourth grade, I read the Tao Te Ching, and I was fascinated by the Tao. I have several interpretations of the Tao Te Ching. I remember reading about Islam. I didn't get a Quran until I was in college. I didn't know what kind of Quran to get. I just remember going into a bookstore and seeing it, and I just got it. And I remember it looked really pretty, and I got it. And then I had, it was a little paperback Holy Quran. I don't know who the interpretation is. And then I got a Yusuf Ali. And then when I came to the nation, we studied from the Maulana Muhammad Ali version. But I had just kind of started that journey. In college, I used to go to 2 church services on Sunday. I would go to the campus Baptist church after I went to campus mass. And I was just looking, and I didn't go to campus mass that long. I went to the campus Baptist church longer than I went to the campus Catholic church. But I think that maybe by my sophomore, junior year, I stopped going to both of them, because I then had started calling myself a seeker, and I was a spiritualist, and I would sit and talk. And the first time I saw whirling dervishes, y'all know what a whirling dervish is? It's a process in Sufism that they use to praise Allah. I saw on campus. And ever since then, to this day, I want to be a whirling dervish. I just want to do it. I just want to take the class and learn how to do it. But I remember seeing the whirling dervishes on campus and being exposed to that and learning about that aspect of religion, about Sufism. And Sufism touched me, but it wasn't home. And so I just kept studying, kept seeking. It was a big part of my life. Obviously, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I think the most shocking thing in that book was when I learned that he was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and I didn't even know he was born in Omaha, Nebraska. That's how lackluster sometimes our Black history is. Although I was really in high school, really into Martin Luther King. And my mom used to buy, some of y'all don't remember this, but she used to buy me these albums and that had Martin Luther King speeches on them. And I got a couple scholarships writing and interpreting his speeches. I actually have a copy of his eulogy. And I remember and I just got the eulogy when I've been working on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House. But through all my years of studying Dr. King, I kind of started to get his evolution. And when I read the eulogy, it was very clear to me that the Dr. King that we know of today is a very carefully PR'd strategy. But it just, because on every of those albums, an A side and a B side. So we'd get all the speeches. And then I remember the first time I ever, I think, saw the minister's face was when he was helping Jesse Jackson to run for president. And I remember I was running for class treasurer. And I was running for class treasurer, and I used to use the Wendy's, the Wendy's restaurant little logo with the white girl. That's how I ran for class treasurer. That was my signage. Just terrible. But Allah knew me. He knew what I needed. He knew how he was guiding me and rearing me. So, but I remember clearly seeing his face. And I just remember something struck me about his face. But let me go back to this. In 1975, I didn't bring it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's face was on the cover of Jet magazine. And it said something about him passing away. And I was sitting on the floor of my grandmother's house, and my uncle was sitting on the recliner chair reading the Jet magazine with a can of Schlitz malt liquor next to him on the TV stand. Y'all remember them old school TV stands, those metal ones? And he was reading the book. And I remember I used to have a thing where I used to stare at people. And so I think I broke that when I was a child, because my uncle would always say, stop looking at me with them big old buck eyes. And so I'm like looking at him as he's reading the magazine, but he thought I was looking at him, but I was looking at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's funny because somebody actually gave me, I actually have it here. Y'all hold on. I'm gonna get it for y'all because I really want y'all to see this. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so this is it right here. This is all tattered and torn, but this is the Jet magazine cover that my uncle was reading, and I was sitting there staring at him as he was reading it. And when he got up to go somewhere, I grabbed it and ran upstairs and put it under my pillow. It says, Nation mourns Muslim leader Elijah Muhammad, 1897 to 1975. And I took it and ran upstairs and put it under my pillow. And every night, for a lot of nights, I dug into this Jet magazine. And I mean, who knew? For whatever reason, I was fascinated by this. The photos in here are photos of his janazah, or the janazah they had at Mas Mariam. There's photos of the homes that are in front of the Sajdah house, the baby palaces. There's photos of the trucking, and it's talking about the empire. There's these photos of him with various different people. It's all this book is so old. There's what else? Photos at Savior's Day conventions. But there's this picture of the minister here standing at the rostrum. You see him crying. So this thing, every time I look at it, it brings back so many memories. For some reason, I was fascinated by this Jet magazine. It attracted itself to me. And the year, somebody said, what is the year? It's 1975. It's March 13th, 1975. And I had had Cool Cigarettes ad on the back. Had this under my pillow. Let me see what, the back of the Jet magazine always had what the top song was. The top song was Lady Marmalade by LaBelle. Number 2 was Fire by the Ohio Players. Then number 3 was Supernatural Thing by Benny King. And then number 4 was Shame, Shame, Shame by Shirley and Company. Number 5 was I Am Love from the Jackson 5. So I think y'all kind of get the idea, right? But this right here, I think, was my awareness that there was some kind of connection between myself and the Nation of Islam, and myself and this man right here. My fascination over this magazine and having it under my pillow forever. But there was what I was fascinated with was the feeling that I got. There was an overwhelming feeling of love that I got every time I saw this as a child. And that I just kept trying to hang on to. I had never gotten it from anything else. I had never experienced it and never experienced it again. I didn't even experience it with different life journeys. It's like it's like being, like they say, being on drugs. You're chasing a high. I never experienced what I experienced as a child when I saw my uncle reading this magazine, and I literally stole it from him and stuck it underneath my pillow. Look at the cars. Look at the top car that was out back then. Y'all see that? That was a new car. So I never got that feeling again until July 15th, 1990. But I wasn't sure what it was. I knew it was something. And as I sat that was one of the first time I heard the minister speak, July 15th, 1990. And I was sitting there and I said, something about this. I kept saying, I remember I kept doing this. There's something very familiar about this. And I was saying things like, I've been here before. I know this. I didn't know what it was. And so I just kind of followed the motions. You all have heard the story of how, you heard me tell the story of how Brother Wazir was like, you got to move to Chicago, and how I was invited out by Sister Lisa R. And I just kind of was going through the motions, but I kept saying something about this. And then I said, well, I want to have my ex by my birthday. And that didn't happen. Then I finally got it on September 9th, 1990. I was able to recite in the check post at Mosque number 74. I still just was like, I was feeling something and I felt like I was home and it felt right, but I had not yet connected it to this until one day. And it's crazy because there's a picture of me that I have. I'll have to find it for you all in my brown MGT uniform, sitting in the audience. Somebody was taking pictures that day, took a picture of me. I'm just sitting there. And I remember saying to myself, there was a connection between that feeling and this. And I said right then and there to Allah, I said, if you allow me to walk into this feeling, and you allow me the gifts, because I knew there were gifts with this feeling. And my language was very elementary because I didn't know how to put it. I said, if you allow me the gifts, I won't be mean with it. I'll be generous. I'll help. But I just want this feeling. It was like a high when I look at people and they say, I was chasing that feeling. I just didn't want it to go away. And later, as I just kept going and studying and got into the study guides and got my copy of my Supreme Wisdom and all of that, I have my original Supreme Wisdom. It's a little beat up right here, but my original supreme wisdom right here. And I was chasing that feeling, and I said that this is that feeling. This is the place where I get that feeling. And I think for the most part, as I soldiered in the nation throughout the 90s, I understood how to call up that feeling. And so you all have heard me talk about on my journey as a consultant how I would call up that feeling when I wanted to feel the minister or the messenger or feel closeness to Allah. It was that feeling that I recognized that came full circle to me at this moment. But I had gotten it a little bit when I was standing there in front of the church, but this brought it home. This just kind of overtook me, and I know started to move me through life and prepare me for what it is that I'm doing today and what is to come beyond. And so I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to have been chasing that feeling. And the other day I walked into the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's house, and the feeling came to greet me. It rushed me. And I'm like, there you are. So I'm so blessed to be able to feel it and call it up, and just looking at this cover. But that's kind of been my journey. And I had no concept of the Nation of Islam. I had no concept of nation building, and I didn't have a concept of that. But somehow, some way, shape, form, or fashion, I knew that whatever I was doing had something to do with this. I just couldn't articulate it. And I was chasing it and looking for it. And I still chase it and look for it. It's a little easier now for me to call it up when I need it. But I just didn't get it. I remember how I met Mother Tainetta Muhammad, and Sister Aletha's here, and she'll tell you I knew Mother because obviously I worked at the National Center. I was very close to her son at that time. This is before I met even Rasul, but very close to her son, Minister Ishmael. So I had met her. And I was close to her daughter-in-law. So I'd met her, but I wouldn't say that I knew her or that she was a friend. I was just trying to help, and sometimes I'd get assigned to post with her. If she was going somewhere doing something, they put me on post with her. And one particular day, she was in town and she was staying at the palace. This is the story that Sister Aletha can bear witness to, because Sister Aletha worked at the palace. And Mother came downstairs and they were like, well, can we call you a ride or call one of the brothers to come get you? She said, no, Sister Wendy's coming to pick me up. Mind you, I didn't know I was coming to pick Mother Tainetta up. I didn't know that I was doing that. I think Sister Aletha called me and said, you picking up Mother Tainetta? And I'm like, I guess so. And I had this little raggedy $400 car. And I was so embarrassed because our boss, Sophia, had already told me that the car that I was driving was not representative of the great work that I was doing for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I had in my mind that I needed to go get a new car. And I remember when I went and got a new Honda Accord. It was 4-door, was burgundy, had a little peanut butter interior. And she came outside and saw it and she said, now that represents. But at that time, I had the $400 car and mother never flinched. It was almost like it was something in her that just kind of made her friendly towards me. I don't know. Of all the little sisters that she could have picked that were around that day, she picked me to take her places and pick her up and go places. And she'd show up with all her bags. You know, she always had all that stuff. She'd show up with all her bags and books, and she'd get in my little $400 car and didn't have no air conditioning. She did not care. We would go up north shopping for scarves. And somebody would say, well, what would y'all talk about? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad in different aspects. Oh, she told me what he said about Lake Michigan, or what he said about this, or I learned and I saw how she would consult him in his absence for many things that she did. And I just watched it in fascination. But remember, I'm in a high that I've been chasing since this day. So as she's talking to me, I'm in that spiritual space. I'm in this spiritual space that I was in when I first saw this book, while I'm talking to her about her husband. And so as she's talking to me and explaining things, I'm in this space. So I'm absorbing it in a different kind of way, maybe than I would otherwise. And being able to be around and hearing the minister say the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this, or the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that. I never thought about a title, a post, a job, or anything. I was just, just there for the feeling, there for the connection, and here for the connection, here for the belief, here for what that meant. And so when I started to dive into the truth, whether it was reading my Holy Quran as mother taught me every morning, or whether it was memorizing our lessons, or whether it was going to the dojo as a vanguard, I was always in this energy space that I was in love with. And what I learned, I remember when I left. So I got my ex September 9th, 1990 in Indianapolis, Indiana. I ended up being moved to Chicago to work at the National Center. Many of you heard that story. Brother Wazir's like, him and Brother Kamal, like, the minister need people like you. You got to come. So I came. When I was leaving, I remember stopping by Brother Yusuf and Sister Virginia's house. And Brother Yusuf said, now you go up there and you look for Allah everywhere. And I was like, okay. And I kind of got it. And I connected that to my feeling. He said, look for Allah everywhere. And then Sister Virginia said to me, as she was giving me a hug, she said, and when you find it, protect it like it's a little baby. And I never, ever forgot that. And so to this day, I look for Allah everywhere, in everything, every conversation. Driving down the street, I'm looking for him. Looking outside at the leaves on the tree, there he is. Looking here at the books on my table, there he is. Um, and then she said, protect it like it's a little baby. And that took me a while to really get, because as I started to go through the vicissitudes of Muslim life, um, there were times where things or situations would happen, and I had to protect my Islam like it was a little baby. And so when I taught orientation, I would tell the sisters that you protect and cover your faith and your Islam and your love for Almighty God Allah like it's a little baby. And don't never let nobody hurt your baby. Don't let nobody take your baby from you. You hold on to that baby and you love that baby and nurture that baby, and that baby will grow up to serve you and to give you back that feeling over and over and over again. And so that's kind of been my spiritual journey. And then that, for me, that feeling gives me assignments and different things that I'm supposed to do. And it has blessed me with a wonderful and beautiful connection with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and just so many blessings. So I encourage you to discover your spiritual journey. I learned a lot about people's different spiritual journeys way back then as an orientation teacher. People had gotten in a situation. Some people was out in the street and they found God, or God literally just came to them while they was on Skid Row or something like that. And I just think that those are all just beautiful stories, and because he has his own way in which he comes to each and every one of us. And so when you hear somebody else's story, be careful not to try to own their story or take their story from them. If they're telling their story, don't compete by feeling like you just got to tell yours right then. It's all a testimony, but you can do it gently. But even in somebody else telling their story, he's in there for you. So when you learn to fall back and just kind of listen, remember, look for Allah everywhere. He's in that story as well for you. Because the mere fact that that person's interacting with you and you all are talking says that there's something in it for you. So you got to listen for what's in it for you. Don't be so quick to just go, I got to tell my story. I got to say my part. I got to change up my story so it sounds like that. It is what it is. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat. Okay, so Brother Gilbert says, I knew I had to get into the teachings when I ran into a brother I used to hang out with in foolishness, had become a devout member of the Nation of Islam. Yeah, I hear a lot of people say that they saw somebody else and just said, I got to do this too. Sister Felicia said that $400 car was the beginning of the unknown spiritual journey and your life purpose. It's a beautiful journey, if you will. You know what, Sister Felicia? You are so right. And the reason why that $400 car is significant is because, and I don't say this to offend anybody, I didn't grow up in a $400 car lifestyle. Okay. My parents were ballers before it was a term. Okay. And I'm not saying it was like a wealthy type of thing, but they were ballers before balling was a term. So they were always the best dressed, the flyest, had the baddest cars, Mercedes and Corvettes. That was how I grew up. House with 2 kitchens, and so they were ballers before balling was a word. My dad was driving Mercedes when everybody was still driving Cadillacs. So that's kind of how I grew up. So for me to be embarrassed to have to pick up, for me to navigate through the embarrassment to pick up Mother Tinetta in a $400 car after being told by my boss, Sister Sophia, or one of my bosses, that that car don't represent the work that you're doing for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I had to navigate through some stuff to do that. And I felt very courageous because it wasn't a reality about myself that I had accepted. So let me see. Let's see what else you all are saying. No, she wasn't talking negative about my car. She was just always pushing us to do more and do better. She used to train us on how to represent ourselves and how to conduct ourselves. You know, when I came up as a young person in the nation, presentation was everything. You know, how we looked, how we dressed. We were trained on how to present ourselves. We rarely, I don't remember, somebody can tell me in the chat, but we rarely dressed casually. We didn't go out and be in gym shoes, and we just, it was just the way we were taught to present. If we went to the dojo, we went there and changed clothes and then worked out and changed clothes and got back. We didn't present in a certain way. Our car was always clean. The minister told us to always have at least a half a tank of gas in the car. So there were lifestyle things that we were taught. We were able to be taught, you know, through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan being right there. Because it wasn't that many of us, and the minister was moving around. So we were moving around him. The minister wasn't like off at the farm where you didn't see him every day, or you had to go there to see him. He was right there at the palace in Hyde Park, and we saw him or saw of him or were aware of his movement every single day. So we were always around somebody who was a dignitary or some space in which those of us that work closely, in which people outside of the nation would see us, and we were a reflection of him. So she was right to tell me, to push me to strive to do better, because to be pulling up in this loud car was definitely not representative. So that's what that was. So she wasn't busting on my car, although she was busting on my car, but she wasn't busting on my car, if that makes sense. And I'm grateful for her, period, because I remember Sister Sophia saying to me, you know, when you work in these environments, you hear, but you don't hear, you see, but you don't see. And I just remember learning integrity, and I remember learning about privacy and protecting people. I had grown up with a healthy sense of privacy because my mother was like that. She wouldn't open our mail. She wouldn't dig through our stuff. So I understood that. But Sophia helped to take that to another level about confidentiality and things like that. She was really big on that. Just how you interact with the minister, how you handle him, how you speak to him, what you say in front of him. To this day, if I need to call the minister, it takes me 2 or 3 days to get myself together, because I just want my vibration and my spirit to be in the right space. Because that's just kind of how we were raised, in terms of just how we dealt with one another. We were raised to always just, we just was down for each other, and we was looking beautiful doing it, but you wasn't getting ready to mess with none of us. It's funny because to this day, I think for a lot of us, when we see each other, there's still that look like, I got you, brother, I got you, sister, because that's That's just kind of how we had to be because it was such close quarters. There weren't enough of us to have like the strong structure that we're able to have today. There was really no relief from post. You just was on it. And you got off when the minister got done. That's just how it is. Mom says, such a blessing to learn at an early age and to follow your purpose in life. It's really a blessing. And I'm grateful, for you, Mom, and for, my father and my grandmother and all of those who help. It's like a petri dish, right? You help keep the environment in right, or in at a certain temperature. When you're trying to grow a seedling, you got to have the temperature right. It has to be the right amount of sun, the right amount of water, the right amount of nurturing. It has to be the right amount of the right environment. And I was very blessed to have that environment so that it can nurture me up along the way. So my journey wasn't where, some people went through a certain amount of abuse and the abuse turned them to their spiritual side. Mine was kind of growed up and reared like in a petri dish. And it was just the conditions and the environments that were such that I was allowed. When as a teenager, as a preteen, as a young person, I'd be in my room making all kind of noise. But I had this little synthesizer that we used to call the organ. I don't know where y'all got that from. I don't even know how I got that, but I had a little synthesizer. And I'd be in my room playing music and singing, and I was allowed to just be in that space for however long I wanted to be in it. Nobody knocked on the door and said, stop making all that noise. I go from that to reading, to playing the flute, to doing, I had this lady that used to come on TV. I thought her name was Hatha Yoga, but she was really doing Hatha Yoga. And I would do it with her. And I used to sing. I'd be in there singing. And nobody would come in there and say, shut up, sit down, come do this. They just wouldn't bother me. And I think about that all the time and how phenomenal that was, that they just let me be and grow and develop. I think the only interference, I always got good grades, so they never had to worry about that. The only time my mom interfered, because I couldn't dress. And my mom's a dresser, right? I couldn't dress. And sometimes when I see pictures, I saw this picture of me, the picture of me outside petting the dog. I had on mine, and I always wore glasses. So I always had big, thick glasses on. They didn't have the little glasses now where they shave them down. So my glasses was thick. And you could see the rings. But I had on some orange, like track pants with the white stripe going down the side, and a light green t-shirt that had a butterfly on it. My hair was parted down the middle, and it had, remember how we used to twist it around in the back, but it wasn't twisted real good. So it was not looking nice. Them glasses, I had on some white socks and some flip-flops. And I remember, I said, Mom, why you let me walk around like that? She said, I was just letting you be yourself. I was just grateful. I'm grateful for that. And so the only time Mom really intervened was when it was time to get dressed, like Easter or school pictures. She always made sure I was fly. She'd get me together then. And then I think I would say maybe by high school, late high school-ish, I got the bug of wanting to dress and all of that kind of stuff. But up until that point, I never cared about it. And I saw another picture of me in the wintertime. I would wear two coats. I had on a I don't know, some kind of cowboy looking boots. I had on like a work vest, you know how a work jumpsuit, like a snowsuit, like a man's snowsuit. I had that on. I remember it had I think it was my father's or something. It was all big. And then I had a coat on top of that. And the ski suit thing was black. The coat on top of it was like a light blue down coat that came maybe to my knee. And then I had on a burgundy hat with white stripes that I couldn't dress. And so she would intervene then and make sure I was looking right. She made me get my ears pierced and all of that kind of stuff. But other than that, they just let me be in my little space in there, chasing this feeling, singing, dancing around like a little hippie girl. That's probably how you could describe me. Maybe like a Lisa Bonet looking chick, but not that fly. She was a lot flyer than I was, but yeah. So that's the story of my spiritual journey, and I'm looking forward to hearing about you all's spiritual journey and just what it took. Somebody, but Lamont said he had a synthesizer. I don't know where the synthesizer came from. Sister Felicia said, we was living as believers before we knew we were believers. Some of us experienced that life growing up in the unknown from the time we were in our mother's womb and now in the classroom of God. That's right. I believe that. I bear witness that. Yeah, I was born for that in my mother's womb. She wasn't a Muslim, wasn't in the nation, wasn't consciously aware of it. Of course, you can't grow up in the 1960s and not hear the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and know of them. But in terms of being there and being in the nation, somebody had to touch her and touch her womb and touch all of that. The sperm, the egg had to be touched. And then even the touching had to still be there, because just to kind of allow your child to just grow in her own way, I think it's very, very powerful parenting. And that's something that hit me one day, because I thought about it and I said, that daggone synthesizer had to be loud. And that music that I had up in there had to be loud. I'm in there, the door closed, I'm dancing, I'm singing. It just all had to be very weird and very loud. And they never said nothing. Like I said, the only time my mother said something was when it came time for me to get dressed for school, like school pictures or to go get school clothes. And if you ever see pictures of me, I always was probably flyer than what I should have been, but that's because my mom, who was really super fly, was picking out my clothes. I had little leather jackets and all kind of stuff. But anyway, y'all, I just wanted to tell y'all about my spiritual journey. I'm gonna get off of here. I didn't talk to overtime today. I didn't mean to keep y'all this long, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for today. Today's a very special day. We got some tours at Sajdah House today. I actually was supposed to be traveling today, but I was like, these special tours, I have to be here for this. So we're doing that today. And I'm just grateful for today, because September 9th, 1990, it marks officially when my name got put in the Lamb's book. So anyway, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for all your support. Don't chip and dip me today. Y'all see the Cash App going across the bottom, $Mo today, MOETODAY. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Stop for a minute, like and subscribe. Thank you all for all of your well wishes. Thank you. Thank you so much. for all of that. And make sure you support the completion of the home of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. If you don't have your commemorative Elijah coin, get another one. Get one and get another one. Tell somebody. But become a sponsor, because what we need is to get our chunks of funds in. And listen, I know how Black folks are. I realize that me talking about asking you all to support the completion is really just a spiritual process that for whatever reason Allah wants me to go through. Because we will listen, Black folks send me notes, they be crying, they call me up on the phone, they be crying. I said, okay, did you make a donation? They ain't been more thinking about making no donation. So I realized that there's something spiritual in this. And as I put all this together, I'm sure Allah is going to share with me and show me a story at some point. He's blessing the project. He's going to continue to bless it. It's going to get completed. Certainly something that I want. And I know it's something that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wants. He's told me himself. So I believe anything that he wants, Allah is going to give it to us. So it's going to happen. But this is really just a spiritual process, because I know a lot of people I'm not becoming a sponsor. I'm not donating. It's like, okay, it's up to you. But for me, I'm all about diving into preserving and owning and monetizing our history. And I understand the process of legacy building. And I told y'all, I know I was here before. And I know I'll be here after, inshallah. All right, peace and blessings, family. Thank you for wishing me a wonderful spiritual birthday. I'm so excited. So go to sajdahhouse.com, get your coin, make a donation, and support. All right, peace and blessings. I got some commercials. Don't hang up till we get to the other side of these commercials. And if you need a coaching session on your money psychology, emotional intelligence to help you with your business, to help to expand or even start your business, then go ahead and set up a consultation with me. Want to be a sponsor, get a deck, just send me to get the sponsorship deck, send me an email, sajdahhouse@gmail.com. All right, y'all. Peace and blessings.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that history develops the springs and motives of human action, which display themselves most powerfully in the destiny of man. History actually motivates and stimulates human action. Sometimes you may not know what to expect from yourself. But if you only could read the autobiography of someone from among your people who has achieved, then that tells you what is possible to do. Black people in America have labored without understanding the realm of possibility for black people. And because we don't know what is possible for us as a people to achieve, we labor under the misconception that the accomplishments of Caucasian people should be our guide. And as a result, we keep on trying to be like them rather than trying to be ourselves. This is a result of being robbed of history.